Comic Book Savant, episode 307.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets minds free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, I'm still playing catch up on movie reviews missed during earlier this summer when I was unable to record. So this week, we're going to discuss Warcraft. We're going to do an in-depth, spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen Warcraft already, please stop the podcast now. If you're interested in the movie, watch it, then come back to this. If you aren't, then proceed with caution that we will discuss points of the movie, things of that nature, so you will be spoiled. But before we get into that, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them at comicspodcast.com. If you like this podcast and you're looking for more comic book or geek culture related podcast shows, definitely that's a good launching point. I spotlighted a lot of different shows like Comic Book Noise, Geek Brunch, the Raging Bullets podcast. You can find all of them. Also, in my notes on the website, you can go to the links page and you can see friends of the podcast. You can find their sites there, or you can also go to comicspodcast.com and check them out there. We're all a member of that association, so you can find all those shows I've brought up before and many others over at the Comics Podcast Network. Like I said, it's just a good portal and a launching point if you're trying to find like-minded shows like the one I do and some of the people I've spotlighted previously on the show. You can find more like-minded podcasts there. So definitely, if you have a moment, check that out. Plenty of good shows there. And as always, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor, which is InStockTrades.com. Just, if you're buying collected editions or you're collecting them, this is one of the best resources you have on the internet to find collected editions over at InStockTrades.com. And you can save a ton on the books as far as pricing is concerned. You have discounts ranging from 35%, 42%, and up to 50% off, just depending on the different specials they have. They have a deals of the week on the homepage. So when you go to InStockTrades.com, you'll see right off the bat what the deals are for the week. Currently, they have the Absolute Why the X-Men hardcover. I can't see what volume this is. This is volume number 2, 50% off. This is the Absolute edition. These normally run $100 or more. You're getting it at 50% off, $62.50 with that. You also have Captain America Epic Collection trade paperback Coming of Falcon. That is 50% off for $19.99. We have Fables Deluxe Edition hardcover volume 13, 50% off, only $14.99. You have Justice League hardcover volume 8, Dark Side War Part 2, 50% off, only $12.49. You have the current or the most recent Power Man and Iron Fist series, volume 1, Boys Are Back in Town, 50% off, only $7.99. And this is very appropriate with the movie coming out soon. We have a Doctor Strange Omnibus hardcover volume 1. That is 50% off, only $37.50. So they're great deals. And if you're not aware of it, if you are a U.S. resident and you order from InStockTrades.com, you place an order that's $50 or more, you will get free shipping within the U.S. If you're an international customer, you don't get that bonus, but they do have some of the most reasonable and competitive shipping rates around. So you still get the great savings on the book, and you can get the book shipped to you at a very reasonable price. So definitely check InStock Trades out when you have a chance, and just let them know that you heard about them here on the Comic Book Savant podcast. With all that out of the way, let's talk about Warcraft. Now, some of you guys might be puzzled on why is he covering Warcraft? That's not a comic-related movie, but it actually is. It is. I know, even though the roots of the movie is linked to the Warcraft video game and PC game franchise, and would eventually became an MMO with World of Warcraft. The actual during 2007 to 2009, so for about 2 years, DC/Wildstorm, because it was under the Wildstorm imprint after DC bought it, they ran a 30-issue series that was written by Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson, the husband and wife couple. We all know, Walt Simonson from things like Thor, and him and Louise did X Factor, the original X Factor comic book over at Marvel, and many, many other things. They're prolific, writing, and, Walt Simonson was a writer as well as an artist, and awesome at both. Where Louise was just a writer. He did both sides. Then she always was a great writer, and they worked well together as well. And they did a 30-issue series that, like I said, launched with the popularity of the World of Warcraft MMO game on PC, which I dabbled in a little bit. Some people, that game has been out for over 10 plus years. I think it recently had a 10-year anniversary. Yeah, I want to say it was the 10-year anniversary. So this movie was long overdue, but it did have, even though it was a brief run, it did have a run as a comic. So I wanted it because my curiosity was piqued when this movie was finally announced. It had been rumored that they were making this movie at one point. Sam Raimi was attached to it for years. That broke off. Then Duncan Jones, he was an up-and-coming director. After he did things like Moon, he got even more popularity, and then he was attached to it. And then this movie was in development for, quite a few years. This movie was filmed quite some time ago, and it's taken, a long time for it to hit the big screen with mixed results. But let me get down to a little further information. I just wanted to give you some background that it actually does classify itself as a comics movie, though in mainstream media, they don't. If it's not Marvel or DC specifically, it's not classified as a comic book movie. But it technically, for our purposes, it is not fully based on a comic book. But certain things just like Star Wars and G.I. Joe and other things, they've had comic books that tied into their lore. So that's all it needs for me to qualify to talk about on the show. And the actual World of Warcraft comic book was actually a really good comic book, but that was in Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson's wheelhouse with all their old Thor stuff, and it was very reminiscent of his 80s Thor run, as far as the coolness of the characters and the mythical creatures. They can do that in their sleep. So it really had a good feel to it. I didn't read the whole series, but I read about 2/3 of the 30 issues, I want to say. And it was really just fun. It was fun just to change the pace comic that I read at the time. But again, it was very short lived. Back to the movie. It was known as Warcraft here in the States or North America. Overseas, it was known as Warcraft: The Beginning. It was directed by Duncan Jones. It was written by Charles, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Levitt, and Duncan Jones himself. And the breakdown is as follows. The peaceful realm of Azeroth stands on the brink of war as its civilization faces a fearsome race of invaders, orc warriors fleeing their dying home to colonize another. As a portal opens to connect the two worlds, one army faces destruction and the other faces extinction. From opposing sides, two heroes are set on a collision course that will decide the fate of their family, their people, and their home. Very good breakdown, very good synopsis of what the movie is about. We have Travis Fimmel as, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Audun. I think that's how it was pronounced in the movie. Audun Lothar. Paula Patton as Garora. Gunora? Maybe it's Gunora. Ben Foster as Medivh. Dominique Cooper as Lane Wren. These names are tough. Toby Kebbell as Dortan and Antonidas, Ruth Nega as Lady Taria, excuse me. Ava Galvin as Darka, Clancy Brown as Black Hand, Robert Kaczynski as Orgrim, Daniel Wu as Gul'dan, Ben Snitzer as Kandar, and Glenn Close as Elodie. And she had a brief cameo, and I was kind of shocked that I was like, wait, that's Glenn Close. It was like very like maybe a 2-minute scene, if even that. So it was a super cameo, but I thought it was cool seeing her in it, so I wanted to include her in the cast. This movie is basically what the synopsis said. I'm not steeped in the lore, because the one thing that was cool about the comic is this is a gaming franchise that is over 20 plus years old and spans over many games, and it built each one in Warcraft franchise built on the lore of all the games that preceded the one before itself. So when you're dealing like this, even though it's not known to the larger world, something like a Star Wars or Star Trek, it is just as extensive as a lore and background. I think the biggest mistake in this movie is that if you're a fan of any of the games, or if you played World of Warcraft, even though it was, it preceded all the PC games and kind of melded it all into one world, that world has even persisted for over 10 years and added on things and taken things, from the different lores and expanded it even more. And I think this movie tried to take all of that in one movie and set so much up. And I think it was a little bit too much, because the lore is so expansive. It was just overwhelming. I went back after seeing the movie, and I saw a lot of different reviews from people that were fans of the games and the lore. Because it's been books, it's been expanded infinitely. Just like and I guess I can liken Warcraft to like something like Star Wars. But again, if it's something that you're into, it. I think that from what I gathered, because I was figuring out how to tackle this review and be the most fair to the material. And I feel like it basically split between people that aren't fans of the material. It was a hard movie for them to follow, and the reviews skewed more towards unfavorable for the movie, to whereas fans, be it whatever level of fan they are, if they just only played World of Warcraft or they've played all the games, and that they're steeped in the lore and they more favored and or loved the movie. I'm in between. I'm in the middle of the road for it. I think they did a lot of things right. It was a lot of performance capture going on. A lot of it was done extremely well. I don't think that in certain parts it was kind of funny, because it seemed like the CGI or the performance captured characters outshined the actual live actors in the movie. You cared about the orcs story, especially I want to say Toby Kebbell's character. His character was very, very compelling. You cared for him from the moment you saw his story carrying throughout. Some of the other characters, I thought Ben Foster, as much as I love him as an actor, I thought he was kind of miscast in the movie. Travis Fimmel, he played the brother-in-law to Dominique Cooper's. He played the king. I felt like Travis Fimmel's Audun character was more kingly than Dominique Cooper, but it was still for Dominic, it was a relatively small role in comparison. Travis really carried the movie as far as on the human side of the conflict of the Azeroth side, or the human side of the story. He pretty much was like the main thread in a lot of the movie. He bared the weight of a lot of the movie on him. I thought he did a very good job. He reminded me very reminiscent of Aragorn and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He very much had that kind of cool vibe to him. I think a lot of money, a lot of the budget was spent on the motion capture and a lot of, CGI, because there's so many mystical characters that I think it would have took even longer to produce the movie if they actually had to try to do some of those things in practical effects. So a lot of this movie was heavily CGI, which I feel like a lot of the budget went to, and certain things suffered. I felt like when it came to things like the costumes for on the human side, they did not look real. They looked very plasticky. We've seen so many movies, set in, mystical, settings, and their armor looked real, but here it very much looked fake at times and very plastic. Like, if it really got hit, because you were seeing the fight scenes where they were going up against nothing because they were CGI characters. So it was no real physical conflict for you. You can really see or swords banging against the armor that you can, it felt or heard the actual clanging to kind of put you in that mindset. It looked like if you had punched it one good time, you would have went right through it and hit the person. So it looked real cheap at spots and looked really, really polished and nice in others. And that was kind of the imbalance that threw you out of the movie. Now, one thing that really stood out with the special effects, like I said, the performance capture, especially with all the orc characters that were CGI, except for Paula Patton was the only one that wasn't. They did extremely well. I think all of that part was done well. I just think the way it points in the movie, it took you out of it because it borderline looked like a video game at parts. So it's because so many characters, even on the human side with dwarfs, they had dwarfs and things like that in there, that and their mounts and such. It was like very, very heavy. But again, overall, the movie, the characters, like I said, the human side of the conflict was a little less compelling. They were following so many different plot threads, and they were, you get into area where you have an Iron Man 2 situation, or you have a Age of Ultron situation where you're trying to set up so many different storylines, because it started letting you know as they started expanding on this that they touched on so many little parts, but you saw this was a fully fleshed out world with history and lore with it, and they were jumping around showing you these different characters, and it was so many different, like, I want to say sub leads to the movie. It wasn't one main antagonist and then protagonist and you saw the story through their eyes. It was like, all the people that I named were some kind of main character. It was just not one. For me, because one I cared about more, I would probably say Travis Fimmel Aldoon, his character, and Toby Cavill's Dortan were the two main characters for me, because they're the only two characters that I really, cared about throughout the movie, to be honest with you. So the storytelling got muddled because you were switching so many quick parts and so many other parts overlapped. Certain things were teased or kind of thrown out there to raise your eyebrow, which, I guess is meant to be for upcoming movies. And then the ending, they left so much of this movie open that, they set up a lot of things. Certain things were concluded. Other things were set up for future movies. And I do say movies because it was so much stuff thrown out there. That going forward, if they're going to do it right, and we're going to get to that in a moment, if they're going to do this right, trying to, to fix the kind of mistakes coming from this first film, that they definitely would have to kind of narrow the focus, tighten it up on a couple of characters at a time, not have, like 8 different people that you're covering stories from. Now that you've established certain things, if the certain actors want to come back, Paula Patton, what are they going to do with Ben Foster? Is he going to come back? Dominic Cooper's character, he was at the end of the movie, he was killed off. Toby Kebbell's character was killed off. It was a lot of death in this movie too. They didn't shy away from really, because there was so much stuff going on and so many characters. I think to thin it out moving forward, that certain people were going to have to die, and this plus too, the name of the movie was Warcraft. It was a war that took place. So it was definitely going to be casualties, and they were. So, but I think in the next movie, it was they end the movie in a weird space that Paula Patton's character was set free by Toby Kebbell's Dorothy character, and was sent off to be with the humans. And basically to end the conflict, the only thing they could do is that Dominic Cooper basically sacrificed his life to save his people and to forge a truce with the orcs. And the only way he saw fit to do that is have Gamora kill him, so she could be the leader. After they took out the evil wizard, which I think was no, it wasn't Clancy Brown's character. I cannot remember which. Was it Dark? No, it wasn't Dark. Was it Orgrim? I think it was Orgrim. I can't remember, because all the names, there's so many different names. It is even more characters' names that were thrown out than just these that I listed, that get a little bit confusing, and the orcs all kind of look somewhat similar in some shape, forms, and fashion, just different variations. So it got tough to follow at points too, and I do apologize. I don't. But the evil wizard, the evil orc wizard, when he was defeated, or at the end of the movie, this was Dominic Cooper's the king. Only way he saw fit for it to be kind of peace, because she had been that kind of go between. She was mistreated by the orcs and actually kind of enslaved by the orc wizard, and she was brought in as a captive because they looked at her as a threat, because she was with the orcs at the time they first came into contact with them, and they assumed that she was one of them. But she's clearly like a hybrid. She's a human orc. And it was certain things hinted about her parentage there, kind of set up, that needs to be clarified. So she would be the perfect kind of vessel to go between the two worlds and keep the peace as much as she possibly could, so they could coexist on this world. And with the Dominic Cooper's death, it immediately put Aldoon, which is the Travis Fimmel character, in the position of king, because he was, the queen. The queen was his sister. She, I don't think they had any kids, so pretty much put him in a position of being the king going forward. Him and Paula Patton's character, Gamora character, had a burgeoning, romance in the movie. So now they're, because of what she had to do to save everyone, he didn't see overheard the conversation that was done by the king to her, that basically forced her to kill him. So, now he pretty much thinks the woman he loves killed his brother-in-law. So it sets up an interesting dynamic going forward for the franchise. And then it was a whole other side story, with Dorothy, and I want to say Darka was his wife. She came over with him when they went through the portal, and she was pregnant, and they had a child that she, to save the child, because they were trying to kill her. In this one scene, she puts the baby, in a basket, in the traditional trope of putting the baby in a bassinet and putting it down the river. and the baby's found at the very end of the movie. It's a stinger at the end where you see that the orc child is found. So they set up so much stuff for future movies. It'll be interesting to see if another movie gets made, because it pretty much, well, before I get into that, let me talk about, another thing I want to talk about with the special effects. Though CGI was very heavily used throughout the movie, one of the things that was a definite standout was the use of special effects when it came to the magic. They did such an awesome job, and I just hope, and I said, hopefully whoever made Doctor Strange looked at this movie, because that's one thing I felt like they nailed it down packed and made magic look so wonderfully cool in this movie. And it just, when I watched it, it just was like, I hope magic looks this cool in Doctor Strange, because I think that's always such a weird balance when you do these magical things, special effect wise. We've come a long way, but we haven't touched that heavily into this. We've done it with superpowers, but magic is a whole other thing. And it really looked like a lot of this stuff was lifted right out the game, but done on a larger scale. And it looked very, very, very good with all the different incantations and different spells that was used, especially by Ben Foster's Medivh character, because he was the guardian, the magic protector of the realm. He did a lot of different spells and whatnot and incantations, and the effects for them looked so unbelievable. So definitely going forward, if you were seeing more magical characters incorporated in the bigger budget comic book movies, that they take some of the effects that they've seen in this movie and take it up to another level and improve even more, or use these similar people that did their special effects on the magic, because it looked wonderful on screen in action. So my overall review for the movie is a red box it. It didn't blow me away. I didn't hate it. It was, it was the middle of the road. I didn't have any high expectations going into the movie. I actually didn't have much interest in the movie at first, but I had an opportunity to go check the movie out, and I thought about, I did have fun with the comics, even though, again, it was a briefly very short run series. I just was like, I'm interested to see how this is going to shape out on the big screen. Either it's going to be a hot mess or it's going to be really good, and it kind of just fell in between. And that's where it is. I don't think this is something that I would. I don't necessarily think, based on this movie alone, that this is a movie that I would buy. But if they did a sequel and it corrected a lot of the bulky, murky storytelling and told a little more focused story and developed the characters, because there was so many characters, it was very hard to develop everyone in the time frame given in the movie. So if they narrowed down the focus and really worked on with the characters that are left, some character development, I think it could turn me on to the franchise. Like I said, it's right there borderline for me. If I would have to say numerically on a 10-point scale, a red box it, and this is out on home video now. I think it just came out earlier this month, so I think like a week or so ago, digitally. So you might be able to find it on Redbox now, or you can buy it digitally through like Amazon and or iTunes. I give it like a 6 out of 10. Is it entertaining? Has some definitely entertaining and cool spots and effects and stuff in it. But like I said, they would really have to do something special in the second movie to kind of correct the ship to get me on board, and then I might buy it, because I could see some of all these different threads that were set up in this first movie starting to pay off in the second. So if the second movie was strong and Duncan Jones directed it, because I think you can't do a second movie without him, at least if not directing, at least being some type of executive producer or main consultant, because he also wrote the movie as well. So he would be the best person to make sure some of these plot threads that he left dangling are, kind of resolved or are going down the path of being resolved if they're either even bigger, storylines than what we know that can't be dealt with in then one more movie that that he would be that main best person to kind of handle or navigate that if they would go forward with a sequel. Domestically, this movie did not do well. It only made $47.2 million in North America. Now, the amazing thing about it, over in China especially, but internationally, this broke a lot of box office records. It made a total of $386.3 million internationally for a worldwide total box office for $433.5 million. It had a budget of $160 million, and it was pretty much. I was looking this up, doing some research on this on Wikipedia, and it was in an excerpt from an article, maybe Variety. I want to make sure I quote this right. I want to say it's Variety that was saying the break-even point. I think for the movie was $450 million. It would have to make that to be considered break-even. This was distributed by Universal, made in Legendary Studios, but it was distributed by Universal. So, it was just shy of the break-even point. I think maybe if they tighten up the budget a little bit, market the movie a little bit less, this movie, if they did a sequel could happen. It did so well overseas that, especially that, going forward, I think it made enough just internationally. I feel like the studio, tweaks a few things that, that they could probably get away with this and make this a very profitable movie and probably market it less here and more internationally. And maybe save on the marketing side of the budget. They could make a movie that could actually be profitable with the next film. But time will tell. It's one of those weird things because it's right on that cusp of it wasn't a flop because internationally it saved the movie from itself. And they're definitely clamoring for that this material over there. I mean, you think about it. 47.2 million in North America domestically, and then this movie almost single-handedly, by itself made 400 million, internationally when it made less than 50 million domestically. That's insane. If I was a betting man, I would bet they would at least attempt to greenlight a sequel and get Duncan Jones back behind it because they everywhere else loved this movie to some extent because they came out in droves to see it. So it definitely will be interesting to see how it plays out. Duncan Jones has made it, he's voiced his opinion of that he definitely would love to do a sequel. If given an opportunity, he's open to it. It's been no information on this front now about, is the studio going to green light up the project or not? Only time will tell. I guess they might wait to see since the movie was just recently released on home video. Maybe if it does extremely well on home video, then they might finally green light it. Or this was just a franchise that did not do well enough to succeed to move forward. But I think it's enough bones there of for a decent franchise. If given an opportunity. So, like I said, only time will tell what the studio might do. But definitely Redbox it. If you like swords and sorcery and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to be any Lord of the Rings movie by any imagination, or even a Hobbit. Even if just a lot of people didn't like that, even though I did like the Hobbit personally, the Hobbit trilogy. It falls somewhere in between, so it's decent. And I'm going to go ahead and warn you with that now. That's why I said it's worth Redbox. I wouldn't run out and be like, I got to buy it unless, and I only can recommend this if you're a diehard World of Warcraft fan and you love that world and you love that lore and you love those characters, then run out and buy it. It's a must buy for you. If you're everyone else, it is a Redbox first. And if you enjoy it enough from there, then I would say, yeah, pursue it further in buying and all that other kind of stuff. But for a casual fan, not so much a must buy or run out and buy. As always, that's all I have for you guys this week. I'll have another episode out next week. I either will be going ahead doing the review for Star Trek Beyond, or I'll be covering some comic. Well, that's comic related, or I'll be doing a comic review of some sort. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I have a huge backlog of content here that I'm looking at in Evernote of episodes I have mapped out, and I don't know where to pick up. So still have tons of episodes ready to go. So it'll be that, or I might even finally talk about Voltron, the Voltron series on Netflix. I didn't get around to that yet as well, so I'm just looking. So it'll be something good next week. I just don't know which topic specifically it will be yet. As always, you can find me on the website, comicbooksavant.com, on Twitter at comicbooksavant, Instagram as well, and Snapchat. Also, check out, I have a link to the Facebook page, or you can just go to facebook.com/comicbooksavant. You should be able to find the site there. I'm trying to expand on social media. I know I've talked about it before, but I'm trying, harder. I just don't get to Twitter, and Twitter moves too fast for me, but I'm trying. I'm also starting to post thoughts and opinions on the Facebook page as well. I'm on Facebook a little bit more now, back and forth, so I can actually check that page. Because I'm on there because I have a gaming group that I run. We have a private group that we constantly talk about video games and stuff like that. So I'm on there a lot because I'm in that group, so I can check the Comic Book Savant page, and I can kind of post quick thoughts and stuff there. I'll try to translate it so it goes out across the board on all the different social medias. I'm still trying to tackle that hurdle in the middle of trying to do content, as all the content as well. So be on the lookout for that. And like I said, if you have a moment, stop by the Facebook page, facebook.com/comicbooksavant should be it. Hold on. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. I'm going to double check my own URL on Facebook for that. Don't want to send you somewhere that's not where I want you to go. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So I was right. Yep. Facebook.com/comicbooksavant. And that'll take you to the page. And like I said, I have some thoughts and things there. Also, you can find all the more recent episodes. They also, when I post the episode, it goes out on the website, on social media. They'll go out there as well. So you always will have some way to get an alert that an episode is coming out, and on the Facebook page. So you have multiple places to get information for the show. So definitely, if you don't follow me on those different things, start doing it now, because you'll always be alert when a new episode hits. You'll be the first one to know and can get that episode. So definitely, I will see you guys next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. You guys take care and have a good week.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.